In that dinosaur era ruled by sharp teeth, savage claws, and deafening roars, all the laws of survival seemed to pursue ultimate ferocity and madness. Yet, in the early Cretaceous period, upon that ancient land of Liaoning covered by temperate forests, there evolved an exceptionally unique, almost comical form of life. Its body was merely the size of a goose, covered in soft feathers, and what made it completely unforgettable was that within its tiny mouth grew a pair of forward-jutting, large, flat incisors, looking exactly like those of a modern rabbit. Tonight, by the gentle flicker of the hearth, let us immerse ourselves in this story, one you need not effort to remember, and step into the true lifetime of this ancient creature. Please try to slow your breathing, shedding all the tightly strung thoughts and external judgments of the day onto the earth like fallen leaves. The prehistoric traveler we are about to meet is named Incisivosaurus, a refined soul troubled deeply by its peculiar appearance and cast aside during the day. In a world under the blazing midday sun, its comical, giant incisors made it an anomaly in the eyes of its peers, leaving it looking profoundly helpless and uneasy when facing predators. Yet within the script of destiny, all defects and oddities conceal a tender blessing of the night, waiting to unfold only at a specific hour. When the ferocity of the day completely exits the stage and a boundless night drapes a protective veil over the forest, Incisivosaurus silently approaches its most familiar tree hollow. No longer in a frantic rush to gnaw on coarse shrubs, it uses its large front teeth to rhythmically and softly scrape the hard shell of a nut, weaving an exceptionally relaxing lullaby of white noise within this noise-free primeval midnight. The jungle of the early Cretaceous was a brutal world that deified raw strength and majesty, its air constantly thick with the icy breath of predators. Moving beneath the feet of those immense theropod dinosaurs, the silhouette of Incisivosaurus appeared entirely minuscule, almost completely out of place. Its forelimbs were short, its hind limbs long and slender. Though it ran with sufficient agility, it usually had no choice but to shelter within low fern thickets under the scorching daytime sun. What brought it the deepest unease and self-consciousness was that pair of giant incisors that could never be fully tucked behind its lips. Whenever it tried to look majestic before its peers, these teeth always turned its expression into something comical. During the day, this was a power-driven society that worshipped efficiency and plunder, where massive dinosaurs slashed and tore at one another for food, churning up clouds of dust and the scent of blood. Due to its unique dental structure, Incisivosaurus could only subsist on tender plant shoots, tough roots, and nuts scattered across the ground, an endeavor that drained a massive amount of its time and energy. Its nerves were forever tightly strung by the terror of survival. Every time it searched for nuts beneath giant trees, it had to constantly watch for pterosaurs that might dive from overhead at any second, or greedy eyes lighting up behind tree trunks. The ruthless sun beat down upon it, baking its dense feathers hot and dry, while its jaw muscles, kept in prolonged defensive tension, accumulated a dense ache and petrification over long hours of chewing. Whenever the grass rustled, it had to instantly abort its feeding, fleeing frantically with a weary, tight body. That intense compression from the era left it profoundly despondent and solitary during the day. It could not understand why it had not been granted sharp canines to make enemies recoil, instead bearing such a comical frame, consuming its fragile, anxious life within endless defense and chasing. The long, scorching day would eventually sink toward the west. As that red sun which brought endless clamor to the land finally vanished into the undulating ridges, the primeval jungle welcomed its gentlest liberation. The darkness swirled slowly through the air like calm ink, smoothly painting over all the ferocity, conflict, and boundaries of strength with an equalizing protective color. Those flesh-eating tyrants who were all-powerful during the day, having exhausted immense physical energy, now had no choice but to submissively lay their massive bulks upon the earth, releasing slow, deep snores. In this very moment, the entire ancient Liaoning forest recovered the ultimate serenity belonging to the night. Incisivosaurus walked slowly out from the Cyathea fern thickets where it had hidden for an entire day, taking exceptionally light, slow steps. Free from those critical and scrutinizing eyes, it felt an unprecedented sense of liberty. The cool night breeze blew head-on, tenderly brushing its slightly ruffled feathers, carrying away all the lingering restlessness and parching heat of the day. It strolled along the soft ground carpeted with moss and fallen leaves, each step accompanied by a minute, rustling physical sensation, a feeling of safety born from yielding its center of gravity completely to the earth. The moonlight filtered through the canopy of ancient trees, scattering dappled silver over its dark, finely textured feathers, making its diminutive outline look extraordinarily mild and serene in the dark. Within this late night devoid of competition and danger, those eyes, usually wide with terror, finally squinted slightly, filled with trust for this world. Walking unhurriedly, like a solitary late-night practitioner, it began to cast off all its appearance-related anxieties upon this stage belonging to itself. Incisivosaurus finally paused beside the hollow base of a massive, ancient ginkgo tree, the safest midnight harbor it had meticulously chosen for itself. The interior of the hollow radiated a faint scent of pine resin characteristic of dry wood, and stacked all around were prehistoric ginkgo nuts it had carefully collected piece by piece at dusk. These nuts possessed exceptionally hard, rounded shells dusted with cool night dew, shimmering with a soft, warm amber glow under the moon. Using its short forelimbs, it gently cradled a heavy nut, leaning submissively against the inner wall of the hollow, which had been weathered as smooth as satin. It slowly pressed its large front teeth, deemed a comical defect during the day, lightly against the hard grain of the nutshell, but this time, its jaw held none of its daytime haste or force. Within the ultimate serenity, it began to slide its incisors gently and tenderly across the surface of the shell with an almost mechanical, exceptionally slow, and highly regular rhythm. She 11, soa soa. She 11, soa soa. An exceptionally unique, profoundly pure scraping sound began to echo softly inside the quiet tree hollow. The sound was so small, so light, perfectly resonated and filtered by the inner wooden walls until it transformed into a low-frequency, unadulterated primeval white noise. The little dinosaur seemed to enter a wondrous state of self-forgetting. The pressure of each stroke and the duration of each pause seemed meticulously calculated, perfectly identical from one to the next. In this moment, those large front teeth were no longer tools for basic survival chewing. They had transformed into the most refined instrument capable of synchronizing with the night, echoing an unceasing peace through the air. This soft, rustling sound produced by the incisors of the Incisivosaurus displayed an unbelievable power to soothe tight nerves within this noise-free primeval night. It acted like an exceptionally tender thread, weaving the sighs of the night wind, the settling of the soil, and the flow of distant streams into a single, regular rhythm. Around the tree hollow, many small reptiles and mammals that had spent the day running frantically with taut nerves began to gather one after another, drawn by this sound possessed of an intense hypnotic instinct. They released no uneasy cries, instead curling down submissively within the leaf litter outside the hollow, folding their bodies into the most comfortable postures, closing their eyes within the embrace of the sound. She 11, soa soa. The sound resembled the gentlest autumn drizzle, dense yet incredibly light, washing over every leaf and over the tightly strung minds of all creation after a long day. Incisivosaurus could clearly perceive the nesting close and trust of the lives around it. This wonderful tension of relationship filled its heart with a deeply rich sense of contentment. It no longer envied its grand, regal peers, for though those behemoths possessed the power to strike awe into the day, they could never use such minute, exquisite sounds to soothe the anxiety of the entire forest at midnight. Its giant incisors, which had once caused it absolute agony, had transformed in this hour into the grandest, unknown healing grace upon this prehistoric wilderness. Its heart rate began to slow down beautifully along with the regular grinding of the shell, and with each passing breath, the air became thick with a faint plant sweetness released as the nutshell split. This pure, perfect intertwining of physical touch and sound allowed every nerve fiber to loosen completely under the penetration of warmth, drawing it to the margins of dreamland. The curtain of night had now pulled to the deepest, most sheltered hours of the late night, and the Star River sky gleamed like a flowing ribbon of pure silver silk. After thousands, tens of thousands of regular and tender strokes, the hard nutshell in the hands of the Incisivosaurus finally cracked open a refined split with an exceptionally faint click. A rich fragrance, blending ancient oily aromas with the coolness of the moonlight, instantly escaped from the crevice, drifting and diffusing through the dry air of the tree hollow. That scent felt like the ultimate reward for hours of acoustic meditation, causing the Incisivosaurus's eyelids, already intensely heavy, to lose all power to resist. Its movements grew slower and slower, and between the regular rustling sounds appeared longer, comforting pauses full of solace. She 11, soa soa. Each pause synchronized perfectly with its mountain steady, exceptionally slow and light respiratory rhythm. Its large rabbit incisors ultimately came to a quiet rest against the margin of the shell, and that little head, which had carried all the fatigue and loneliness of the day, leaned tenderly against the nut-filled bottom of the hollow due to the absolute release of its muscles. All around it, the creatures of the forest had fallen into the deepest, sweetest slumber, stripped of daytime exclusion, terror, and strife. Using its eccentric, clumsy body upon this ancient land, Incisivosaurus completed its grandest protection of this night in the most restrained manner. The moonlight shone quietly upon the entrance of the tree hollow, merging its shadow completely with the outlines of the nuts, like a beautiful prehistoric dream spanning 100 million years, welcoming its final settling amidst ultimate serenity. 100 million years later, when modern fossil enthusiasts excavate the small, peculiar skull fossil of the Incisivosaurus from the thick, light gray shale of the G-hole biota, the world usually only releases a curious gasp at those rabbit-like front teeth. Yet, those uneven dental facets and exquisite wear marks, perfectly sealed away by the rock, are actually an unadulterated, ancient sound manuscript of nature's ASMR. That small dinosaur that sat alone by a tree hollow at midnight, using the regular grinding of a shell to soothe an entire forest, used its misunderstood body to answer that eternal riddle of defect and existence. Some anomalies are born not to cater to the aesthetics of the day, but merely to leave a stroke of the purest peace for the world in the unknown deep night. Now, the story of Incisivosaurus has slowly walked to its closing end, and that regular, soothing rustling sound it once produced has now transformed into the safest, most comfortable sleep sanctuary around you. You no longer need to feel anxious over the imperfections of the day, nor do you need to force yourself to grow sharp canines just to fit in. Upon this warm bed, please confidently lower your weary head. Your bed is that ancient tree hollow radiating the scent of pine resin, exceptionally secure, and your blanket is that gentle moonbeam full of inclusion, wrapping you snugly and taking away all mental burdens. The hearth fires flicker gently, the final mild ember flowing silently in the corner of the room like a whisper of a soft carrying a plant-like sweetness. Please slowly and securely close your eyes, letting your consciousness sink along with those echoes of the prehistoric shell grinding, loosening and tightening, flowing regularly, down into the depths of this sleep extremity free of noise, holding nothing but boundless embrace. Under the tender watch of the Incisivosaurus's rabbit teeth, may you shed all tightness of your body and sink into the deepest, sweetest dreamland. Good night, and may you have a beautiful dream of ancient tree hollows, of regular white noise, and of a complete reconciliation of the soul.